Happy Labor Day, everyone. Labor Day 2023, Era Vulgara. What you're looking at here is the title page of something called The Synagogue of Satan. Here's actually the front of this particular thing. Tim Dow, a political essay by, hey, I don't know, but it's Aleister Crowley, and it's one of the sections of, if you can read this from this angle, it says Conks Pax. Okay, beautiful book. And it really has everything to do with Labor Day. I found an invoice in this copy from Thelema Publications. I wonder if there's a date on this. Thelema Publications was Helen Parsons Smith. Complimentary order, it says, terms gratis. June 20th, 1990 is the thing on it. Just to thank you for your kind hospitality when I visited with you recently. Well, I digress. That was, anyway, here is the frontis page of Conks Pax. Okay, if you don't have a Conks Pax, figure out a way to get one. That's all. That's all I can say. Crowley wrote it pretty early on, but it's just magnificent. Okay, and it's kind of weird. The most popular and most familiar of the sections of it is the Wake World. Crowley's sort of Alice in Wonderland trip up the tree of life, the Wake World. And there's another one called Alley Sloper and the 40 sort of goofy little plays full of current in-jokes. Current in-jokes concerning the members of the Golden Dawn and British politics and world events and things like that of 1904, and so lots of stuff goes completely over your head until you kind of research it, but the thrust of it is very insightful and very mystical. Now the reason I've drug up the Synagogue of Satan here is because today is Labor Day. And Constance says we can't talk about Labor Day without talking about the great work. And, and it's such a great subject that I went, oh, God, no, what am I going to say about the great work? So I just wanted to get Crowley's most simple, naked, concise, straightforward definition of the great work. And he gives it in a letter back to a woman disciple in what has been published as Magic Without Tears. And he just simply says, the great work is the uniting of opposites. Period. It may mean the uniting of the soul with God, of the microcosm with the macrocosm, of the female with the male, with the ego with the non-ego, or whatnot. The great work is the uniting of opposites. It may mean the uniting of the soul with God, the microcosm with the macrocosm, of the female with the male, of the ego with the non-ego, or whatnot. That's Crowley's definition of the great work. And if you're a Kabbalist, you can start projecting that on the tree of life. The great work is to starting out would be the uniting of your microcosm with the macrocosm, or the uniting of all of this microcosm and macrocosm with Godhead itself, or the uniting of the male, the great male, the yang with the yin, in order to achieve or realize the singularity. The great work is the uniting of the opposites. In 1944 and 45, a lieutenant in the United States Army, Grady McMurtry, he was a lieutenant at the time, when he knocked on Crowley's door, when he visited him repeatedly, Lieutenant McMurtry, at the door. Crowley and Grady would smoke their pipes with their Perique tobacco. They would play chess together, and they would talk about magic. Grady was, I believe at the time, a second-degree OTO member, and the only member of the American OTO to visit Crowley during the war years, World War II. And Grady asked Crowley about what magical motto. He wanted some advice as to what would be a proper magical motto for himself. And Crowley asked him, what is your great work? What do you wish to achieve with your great work? Nothing like putting a guy on the spot. It's almost like what Constance told me this morning, what to do on Labor Day. What do you hope to achieve with your great work? What's your goal? And Grady said, to unite that which is above with that which is below. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know whether I would have been able to come up with something that profoundly profound when sitting in a parlor with Aleister Crowley, smoking a pipe and playing chess. It was a great answer. It was a perfect answer. And Crowley said, well, give me a few days. I'll get you a magical motto. So Crowley sharpened his pencil and got out his Greek and Hebrew gematrias and everything else. And he came at it from the angle of uniting. The uniting of these opposites of above and below. And the Greek god of marriage, Greek god of marriage, is Hymen, or Hymenaeus. And it was just perfect. Hymenaeus. Wonderful. It rolls off the tongue. Hymenaeus. It almost drips with uniting of opposites. And it adds up to 776. And Crowley said, Hymenaeus Alpha. And that'd be a 777. So Crowley wrote Grady, and I think the letter is still available for us to look at and enjoy, saying Hymenaeus Alpha in explaining his logic in doing that. And sure enough, Grady took that as his motto. And no matter what you can say about, someone's life from that point on, it could easily be argued that that was just absolutely a sublime suggestion. The reason I had the Conks on Pox out this morning and the Synagogue of Satan section in particular is because there is a rollickingly funny story, narrative in the Synagogue of Satan that deals with a fanciful, fictitious Chinese sage who literally swims to Japan during the late period, Edo period, or the early period when it was starting to be influenced by British and European forces. And this guy was so wise that the Japanese government sort of hired him as a counselor. And then the story is goofy and funny and full of puns and things like that. I just want to read a little bit of it to whet your appetite toward this, because it has everything to do with the uniting of opposites. The guy's name is Kwa, Kwaa. When he crossed the Yellow Sea, was of the full age of 32 years. The 20 previous equinoxes had passed over his head as he wandered, sole human tenant, among the colossal yet ignoble ruins of Hawaii. Okay. Well, anyway, of Hawaii. His only companions were the lion and the lizard, who frequented the crumbling remains of the officers' quarters, while in a little cemetery the hooves of the wild ass beat uselessly, as if he wished to wake them upon the tombs of the sportsmen that once thronged those desolate hills. He's making fun of the colonial snobs. During this time, Kwa devoted his entire attention to the pursuit of philosophy, for the vast quantities of excellent stores abandoned by the British left him no anxiety upon the score of hunger. In other words, he's eating all that canned food. In the first year, he disciplined and conquered his body and its emotions. In the next 6 years, he disciplined and conquered his mind and its thoughts. In the next 2 years, he reduced the universe to the yang and the yin, and their permutations in trigrams of Fohai and the hexagrams of King Wu. He's talking about the Yi Ching. In the last year, he abolished the yang and the yin and became united with the great Tao. That's the great work. That's at least the summit of the great work. Okay. All of this was very satisfactory to Qua, but even his iron frame had become somewhat impaired by the unvarying diet of tinned provisions, and it was perhaps only by virtue of this talisman, there's the talisman, that he succeeded in his famous attempt to outdo the feats of Captain Webb. I'm not sure what any of that is about. But anyway, he made himself known to the Japanese administration, and he was taken under the wings of a wealthy daimyo. One need not be intimately familiar with the Japanese character to understand that Qua and his feat were forgotten in a very few days, where he swam to Japan and all of that. But a wealthy daimyo with a taste for observation took it in his head to inquire of Qua for what purpose he had entered the country in so strange a manner. It will simplify matters if I reproduce in extenso the correspondence which they carried on by telegram. And this is 1. Who is your honorable self, and why has your excellency paid us cattle the distinguished compliment of a visit? Answer. This disgusting worm is great Tao. I humbly beg your sublime radiance to trample his slave. He's going overdue on the Japanese politeness thing, okay? And question again. Regret great toe unintelligible. Answer back. Great Tao, T-A-O, Tao. Oh, what is great Tao? 6. The result of subtracting the universe from itself. Answer back. Good, but this decaying dog cannot grant your honorable excellency's sublime desire, but on the contrary would earnestly pray your brilliant serenity to spit upon his groveling joro. The answer back from the sage. Profound thought assures your beetle-headed supplicant that your glorious nobility must meet him before the controversy can be decided. Answer back. True. Would your sublimity condescend to defile himself by entering this muck-sweeper's miserable hovel? Answer back. Expect leprous dragon with berry at your high mightiness's magnificent heavenly palace tomorrow, Thursday afternoon at 3 sharp. Thus met Qua and the poet philosopher of China, and Juju, the godfather of his country. Sublime moment in eternity. The names of Joshua and Hezekiah add that of Qua. For though he was a quarter of an hour late for the appointments, the hands went back on the dial of Juju's chronometer so that no shadow of distrust or annoyance clouded the rapture of this supreme event. Okay, that's all very cute and everything else. But this is what I kind of want to leave us with. What, said Juju, O great Tao, do you recommend as a remedy for the ills of my unhappy country? The sage replied as follows. O mighty and magniloquent daimyo, your aristocracy is not an aristocracy because it is not an aristocracy. In vain you seek to alter this circumstance by paying the noxious vermin of the daily paper, to write factious falsehoods, maintaining that your aristocracy is an aristocracy because it is an aristocracy. As Heraclitus overcame the antipathy of Xenophanes and Parmenides, all of it, just a string of things I don't want to pronounce, by his becoming, so let me say to you, the aristocracy will be an aristocracy by becoming an aristocracy. Kiradi and his dirty-faced friends wish to level down the good practice to this bad theory. You should oppose them by leveling up the bad theory to the good practice. Your enviers boast that you are no better than they. Prove to them that they are as good as you. They speak of nobility of fools and knaves. Show them wise and honest men. And the socialistic ginger is no longer hot in the individualistic mouth. Juju granted assent. He had gone almost to sleep, but Qua absorbed that his subject never noticed the fact. He went on with the alacrity of a steamroller and the direct and purposeful vigor of a hypnotized butterfly. Quote, man is perfected by his identity with great Tao. Subsidiary to this, he must have balanced perfectly the yin and the yang. Easier still is it to rule the sixfold star of intellect, while for the base, the control of body and its emotion is just the earliest step. Equilibrium is the great law, and perfect equilibrium is crowned by identity with the great Tao. He emphasized this sublime assertion by a deliberate blow upon the protruding abdomen of worthy Juju, who says, pray, continue. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead here. As above, so below. As above, so beneath, said Hermes, the thrice greatest. The laws of the physical world are precisely paralleled by those of the moral and intellectual sphere. To the prostitute I prescribe a course of training by which she shall comprehend the holiness of sex. Chastity forms part of that training, and I should hope to see her one day a happy wife and mother. To the prude, equally, I prescribe a course of training by which she shall comprehend the holiness of sex. Unchastity forms part of that training, and I should hope to see her one day a happy wife and mother. To the bigot, I command a course of Thomas Henry Huxley. To the infidel, a practical study of ceremonial magic. Then, when the bigot has knowledge and the infidel faith, each may follow without prejudice his natural inclination. For he will no longer plunge into his former excesses. So also she who was a prostitute from native passion may indulge with safety the pleasure of love. And she who is by nature cold may enjoy a virginity in no wise marred by her disciplinary course of unchastity. But the one will understand and love the other. I have been taxed with assaulting what is commonly known as virtue. True, I hate it. But only in the same degree as I hate that which is commonly known as vice. So it must be acknowledged that one who is but slightly unbalanced needs a milder correction than whoso is obsessed by prejudice. There are men who make a fetish out of cleanliness. They shall work in a fitter's shop and learn that dirt is the mark of honorable toil. There are those whose lives are rendered wretched by their fear of infection. They see bacteria as the deadliest sort of all things, but the actual solutions of carbolic acid and mercuric chloride with which they hysterically combat their invisible foemen, such I would send to live in the bazaar, excuse me, in the bazaar at Delhi. And there they shall happily learn that dirt makes little difference after all. There are slow men who need a few months' experience in the hustle of the stockyards. There are businessmen in a hurry. They shall travel to Central Asia and acquire the art of repose. So much for the equilibrium, and for 2 months every year each member of your governing classes shall undergo this training under skilled advice. But what of the great Tao? For 1 month each year, each of these men shall seek desperately the stone of the philosophers. By solitude and fasting for the social and luxurious, by drunkenness and debauch for the austere, by scourging for those afraid of physical pain, by repose for the restless, and toil for the idle, by bullfights for the humanitarian, and care of little children for the callous, by rituals for the rational, and by philosophy for the credulous. For shall these men, while yet unbalanced, seek to attain to unity with the great Tao? But for those whose intellect is purified and coordinated, for those whose bodies are in health and whose passions are at once eager and controlled, it shall be lawful to choose their own way to the one goal. Identity with the great Tao, which is above the antithesis of yin and yang. The great work is the uniting of opposites. It may mean the uniting of the soul of God, of the microcosm with the macrocosm, of the female with the male, of the ego with the non-ego, or whatnot. Happy Labor Day, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow, and it'll be one of those parking lot days tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your vacation if you're on vacation. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.